the only way I could describe it is pure love. This deep love that I had never felt in my life. And it was so powerful that it shook me to my core and I jumped up out of my sleep. And it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before in my life. Welcome everyone to Passion Over Fear, the podcast where we navigate our fears to align with our passions. I'm your host, Jordan Curcio, and today I'm going to be telling you the story of the dream that changed my life, having me shift from being a pre-med student studying biology at a state university in my home state of New York to changing my entire life path, shifting to a cinematography, cinematic arts major, living in the middle of Iowa, making this huge shift all in the pursuit of my passions inspired by this dream. So I'm going to be telling you how the heck I got to this point now and how this entire story is the inspiration behind this podcast, Passion Over Fear. So without further ado, let's get right into it. So it all started for me being the average undergraduate pre-med major, the average college student. And that was just someone that generally followed the 5 main majors that you choose or paths that you choose based on what society and, things like your family influence you to choose. You're not necessarily happy about it, but it's also like you're somewhat enjoying the college experience because it's, you're getting the chance to party, getting some sense of living on your own for the first time, but it's a very surface level experience. And at the time, I was fairly content with it, although I wasn't necessarily enjoying what I was studying, but I thought that this is just what you have to do. This is just the way life is. And so I continued doing that up until this huge moment happened, this dream that happened that shifted my entire life, and I would never see reality the same ever again. One night, or I should say morning, as I was waking up, I had a dream. And in this dream, I saw myself standing in my dorm room. I guess you could say from third person, shifting from third person and first person. But I saw myself standing in my dorm room with a girl standing across from me. And this girl was actually floating with white light surrounding her. And she was giving me valuable life advice. Exactly what that advice was, I can't remember, but I just knew she was telling me some valuable life advice. And as soon as she finished telling me that advice in the dream, I told her, I know why you're here. And as soon as I said, I know why you're here, the words, numbers, she said 111. And as soon as she said that, this white light expanded and grew and filled the entire room. It filled the room up to the point where it actually encompassed me, myself. And as soon as it encompassed me, I felt this deep, divine feeling of the only way I could describe it is pure love. This deep love that I had never felt in my life. And it was so powerful that it shook me to my core and I jumped up out of my sleep, shaking and crying. And I still felt this like loving energy, like just flowing up my spine and in my body. And it was unlike anything I had ever experienced before in my life. And it was just a huge shock to my system. And so right after I woke up and had this feeling, the only thing that stuck with me was that number 111. It was repeating in my head, 111. And I'm like, what does this mean? Like, I was really just like confused. And so I looked it up. I looked up the number 111 and it said that it was an angel number and that it was a sign of a spiritual awakening, and 1 meaning the beginning, it's the first number. And so that led me down a deeper rabbit hole of like, okay, spiritual awakening, what is a spiritual awakening? So that led me to ask deeper questions and put me in touch with this deeper layer and level of life that I had never experienced before. All of a sudden, my awareness shifted from just doing whatever was the norm in life to trying to understand this level that all of a sudden was given access to me. And that was accompanied by visitations from relatives that had passed, from grandfathers that had passed on. Also, because the number 111 symbolized, which I didn't realize till I did more delve deeper in, that it was actually the date that one of my grandfathers had passed. So that opened up a connection with him. And all of these things were happening, and it was getting intense for me. It actually brought up a lot for me, just like emotionally. And as you connect into these deeper levels, it just like, it pulls this energy up that you feel like is actually beyond you. Like I felt like it was bringing up emotions and, yeah, just things that I had to integrate. So there was that initial challenge, me integrating all these new experiences and all this new energy and this new world it felt like I was opened up to so suddenly. And that was very overwhelming for me and actually very challenging for me. Also because I was so engaged in it that it felt like I was putting everything else in my life on the back burner a little bit. But the main thing it was showing me as I was like becoming more passionate and trying to understand this experience, I was just realizing that there was much more to life than me just being another number and doing things just because society told me, yeah, you should be a doctor. They have good status. They make good money. That's the good thing to do. When in reality, you're taking on a big chunk of time in your life to do that. And I'm not discouraging people if that's what you want to do. But if it's not what you want to do, which in that case I wasn't necessarily enjoying what I was studying, to know that I would have to invest all those years. And if I wasn't enjoying it, that's years of stress building, years of debt for medical school and all of these things. And so I was just questioning, is this really what I want to do? And I was realizing like, well, I could always come back and do this another time in my life if I ever want to. But at that time, I was still scared to make a shift. It felt like too big a shift in my life. And so because I was afraid to make this shift and staying in the same place where I knew I wasn't happy, I felt this discontent and disconnect from the environment I was in growing. I mean, I was on one side of my dorm practicing, learning how to meditate, reading these self-help books, while on the other side of my room, I had my roommate who was rushing a frat and living a completely different lifestyle. So I was starting to see polarity and a big shift. I I mean I didn't know, but a big shift was coming. And that was when life forced me to change. And that was when COVID happened. Literally, the university had just sent out a notice saying start packing your belongings because everyone's going to need to move out next week. And then I was forced to go back home. Um, and in this time period back home, that gave me that opportunity to really go into myself and discover more of myself. I tried to take a psychology class. I was still in that same university online just because I thought it would be somewhat more connected to consciousness and like these spiritual concepts, understanding the mind. But the way they touched on it still wasn't fulfilling for me. And then I saw an ad of this university that I'm in now in Iowa, a university where you could study consciousness. Probably the only accredited university where you can do that in the US. And I was shocked to see that. I didn't think that that existed. So as soon as I saw that come up, I was like, this has to be the thing for me to do. And I got this realization there where it hit me like, I'm going to go to this university, study consciousness online, and travel. And so from that moment, I knew it would happen. It ended up happening. And I did an elective class they had in cinematography and video editing, which was my first time ever delving into anything related to art. And so that was a big step for me. But as I connected with that, I realized this new vision hit me where these things that I was studying about consciousness and all these experiences that I was having, I had the opportunity through storytelling, through just learning how to use the tools of media and content creation to share my story with the world and share other interesting stories with the world. And as soon as that vision came into my mind, I knew like I had to continue with the cinematic degree. And so I looked into the other courses that this university offered in the cinematic program, but they were only offered on campus, which the campus is in Iowa. And for me, being from New York, no one in my family had ever even left New York. We're a very tight-knit family and everyone's generally very close. And yeah, and Iowa was also pretty far from New York. I didn't know anyone there. I don't have any family anywhere near Iowa. I don't know anyone. I didn't know anyone in Iowa at the time or at this university. But my my heart, my intuition was telling me that I needed to go. And so that's when it got really challenging for me because I was battling with this uncertainty. I didn't know what would await me there. Would I get there and, again, not resonate with anyone? And this time in an environment even further from home. Also, the other challenge at that time was COVID. There were lots of COVID restrictions related to the university. And so that also had me wondering, am I going to go there in search of, you know, connection and connecting with this hopefully like-minded community and end up just stuck isolated because of this? And so that was a big risk for me. And so I get on the plane, go there with all my stuff, move into my new place. My parents came with me just to see how it was and just to help me move my things into my new place. They say goodbye, and boom, I'm hit with a huge moment of doubt where I'm asking myself, why did I do this? Why did I make this decision? I'm hit with this wave of isolation, it feels. It's like, for me, coming from New York City, this like bustling environment, you land at the airport in Iowa, and then to get to the school, you're driving in 2 hours of just straight cornfields, empty cornfields. And at this time, it's the middle of February, so it's freezing cold, like snow flurries in the air. There's no one outside, it's just fields. And yeah, and you get to the campus and it's desolate. At least this night it was. And so arriving there and then saying goodbye to my family, knowing that this is what I've committed to. I'm going to be spending the next months here without going home at all. And I just got hit with this wave of loneliness because there's this like lack of stimulation now that's not there. I'm just there by myself. I cried. And yeah, it was a big moment for me, kind of breaking down a little bit and being like, why did I do this? And questioning, did I make the right decision? But then I had to dig deep and remind myself, like, hey, you're here for a reason. You chose this. Your heart and your intuition led you here for a reason. And I was just reminding myself of the things, this dream, this vision that I had to learn the tools to share wisdom with the world. That's what led me here. Seeking this like-minded community where I could study consciousness and be surrounded by other people that possibly can understand me. Who knows? Just have an open mind and be present. And so I reminded myself to do that, connected with a friend. And then I had this moment where we were out walking on a trail and this like energy just came over me. I can't even explain it. It was just like an energy, almost like I stepped into a portal. And it's just like something shifted in the air. And I was like, whoa. And it was just a feeling I felt. And this feeling, it had felt like I had been home. Even though I was far from home and not a family member or, in sight, or friend that I had already known in sight. But this feeling of home just like hit me in my heart. And I knew that at that point that I was in the right place. And yes, while it did force me to step out of my comfort zone and put me in a lot of situations where I experienced that doubt in myself, in the end, I'm so glad that I stuck with it because it transformed me, that this experience. Now I can say, after being here and now graduating from this university in Iowa, that I've connected with a beautiful community of people, making so many connections and amazing life enriching connections, that you have a dream or an idea and people are like around you, like, how can we help? We want to help you. And just having that space is just so nurturing for my health in all areas, growth and development. And on top of that, I've developed the tools now so that I can share the wisdom and storytelling with the world. And so I say all this to show the value of what happens when you choose your heart, when you choose to listen to your passions and follow them. Yes, it will bring up fear, but if you can navigate through that and stay connected to your passions and listen to your heart and intuition, you will be rewarded in ways beyond your imagination. Forget about the dream you may have right now. Your passion could lead you to something beyond, something greater than what you can imagine in your mind. And that's what mine has led me to here. I would never, if you would have told me 3 years ago when I was that student in a big public university, just another number, that in 3 years I would be graduating from a university, studying cinematic arts, starting my own podcast, learning about consciousness and spiritual concepts, I would have said you're crazy. I was literally a completely different person. But I'm so grateful for that experience and where it's brought me now and how much I've grown from it. And so this experience that I've gone through has taught me how valuable it is to follow our passions and value our passions and listen to them. And that realization is what's inspired me to create this podcast and share it with you all. And so that just gives a little insight into my story. And moving forward, I'll be sharing not just personal stories and insights, but also stories from the people and guests that will be featured that I'm blessed to meet and connect with, from all the amazing people I encounter in my life that have incredibly unique stories. Because I share this story, and not to say like I have it all figured out. I'm still always learning. I'm still always exploring. And I'd love to take all of you on the journey with me. And I'm happy to have you here on this journey. And there's going to be a lot more interesting stories, a lot more amazing insights and things just to reflect and learn throughout this podcast. So once again, this is Passion Over Fear. I'm your host, Jordan Curcio. You could find this podcast streaming on all platforms: Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube, and many more. And so with that said, thank you all for listening. We'll catch you all on the next episode. Peace.